the market's bubbling a little bit here. And if we get back into a situation where you can get a 5-year fixed at under 4.5%, people are going to go from, I can't believe I can't get a rate at 3 anymore, to, oh my gosh, 4.4 is a wicked rate. Because people have recency bias, and in the grand scheme of things, that is a pretty darn good rate.
It's a good rate overall.
And so if that starts to happen, are we going to get this run again? However, have we done enough to actually curb inflation?
When I was broke, I had rich habits. When I was broke, I had rich habits.
Like, why are all these rich people, why is Bill Gates buying up all this farmland and all this vacant land everywhere and all this crap? What did Mark say about Irvings? 6th largest landholder in the U.S. Irving family. That's weird, man.
That's fucked.
So they're doing it. Why? Why are they doing it?
Imagine an Atlantic Canadian fucking out of New Brunswick. Well, we got to talk about the pod.
That's what I'm doing.
Are we on the pod right now?
Yes.
Oh, we are. Oh, okay. So he said they're 6th largest landholder in the States, which to me blows my mind when you think about how big the States are. A family out of New Brunswick's.
Oh, 100%. Like, how are the Irvings up there with these guys?
Private landholder. Yeah, okay. That's a slightly different.
Still.
No, Bill Gates is private considered. He probably has a public company doing it as well, but
Yeah.
he's considered private. So he's number one private landholder. But my thought is like
Food scarcity, man.
I
That's
agree.
part of it.
So I was big on the food scarcity because my like the thing a lot of them do is they buy the land and then they lease it back to the farmers. Right. And so my thought was that, okay,
100%.
as time goes on and food becomes so much more valuable, these leases are going to go.
And they own the grains that
Holistic.
they have to.
Exactly. But the further I
Santo.
dug into it, because there's a lot of like forested land as well, it starts to look like carbon credits. And the other thing you can do with farmers' land is you don't even have to get the leases up. You can just force specific practices upon the farmers, and you can get carbon credits for that. So, for example, you could be
Man,
like,
this is what is that, like, indentured servitude? This is the feudal system.
yeah, man.
Huh.
So they could literally tell a farmer that they have to churn the land or rotate the crops or grow a certain crop or grow in a certain way.
Or use certain pesticides or not, or what have you. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that can render
And
another
we're
carbon
freaking
credit.
doing that to them anyway.
And again, where everything looks to be going, carbon credits look to be spiking in value. My expectation is that's where they intend to make the money off of it. I asked one of my colleagues who buys a lot of land if that's what he was doing it for. He said no, but I don't know. Maybe he's not thinking of that yet. Maybe he's just in a position of land purchasing, but I think that's why these guys very aggressively purchase farmland predominantly and then forestry as well. And if it all goes to shit, you still make a small return on it. You can possibly sell the pulp or the wood.
Well, it's either that area is going to get developed and it's a home run, or that area is going to get preserved, which, if you can get all these tax credits for preserving it, that can also be home run. So it's like, wait, you mean I get credits, either rebates to my other companies, or I can just sell these credits because our favorite place in the world is Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. Okay, yeah.
Right? This is a paid advertisement for Costa Rica. That is their number one industry, is carbon credits.
I booked tickets to Costa Rica.
What's that?
I booked tickets to Costa Rica.
Did you seriously?
I did, yeah.
When? I'm so jealous.
Third week of
Costa
April. You want to come? You got to come to Las Catalinas. It's actually sick.
Maybe.
It's 20. I'm going for 6 days. We leave on
This
Friday
is the same
night.
place you went to before?
Yeah, it's amazing.
What part of April?
23rd or right third week, and it's the way I have it set up. You leave Friday, we're there, and then we come back Saturday night. So you're back for Sunday. You relax, and you're into your Monday. Like it's nicely set up.
It's like a timeshare thing? Okay, we got to figure that out. All right, let's get into it. This is Master Keys Podcast. No idea what episode. We're not into counting episodes anymore, are we?
Nobody cares what episode it is.
Okay.
They just want to know what the episode's about.
Yeah.
And so
wait, let me get me a little more comfortable here. Slip into something a little more comfortable here, Mark.
This guy, for those that are just listening, Chandler's got on a very bright shirt. I guess, I don't know if I offended him or excited him with my shirt last week.
I don't know either. I don't even know what to call this shirt. Hawaiian?
Damn, son, you really want to go to Costa Rica?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm packed. I got my SPF 3000 ready to go.
It does look like a summer day for you too, because you have the rope.
The little hemp bracelet. Shout out to Andrew Nahas, who was like, burn that bracelet.
Yeah. Okay.
What's
Wow. Hello. Not much. My name's Neal and Chandler. This is the Master Keys Podcast.
Yeah. Chandler Halliburton.
And today we are going to be talking about a few different things. One thing Chandler wanted to go over was how the interest rates actually impact your payment, because it sounds like there's still some confusion out there.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I think People just need to understand the difference again between variable and fixed rates, but we'll go on to that.
I'm going to be talking a bit about the Metaverse, some updates on what's going on there. That has not died. That has not died yet.
Oh my God, this guy.
A messenger app, a social media app for realtors and real estate agents.
There already is one. It's called Snapchat.
Yeah. that's a slightly different animal, but and then I have some just talking points about the inventory crisis that I want to run by you and see what you have to
I also want to
say.
hear what you have to say about the new $15 minimum wage here in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
Do we want to start with some shout-outs? Do we have some shout-outs? Do we have our new followers? We're going to get to the new followers here momentarily.
Hit me with what you want to hear.
What I want to hear?
Well, not what you want to hear. What do you want to know from me?
Does Neal and Chandler know?
Chandler's going to pay me out to be a monster here.
No. What do you think of the $15 minimum wage that's kind of been fast-tracked here for Nova Scotia?
Realistically, I don't think it changes too much. I know there's definitely a certain percentage of people that are below that. I don't know. It's kind of like inflation's gone so high at this point. Like I feel like it's not like it's going to make people have any more money really. And if ultimately it just adds to all the other impacts that we're having. So it's another cost, right? It's like adding a tax in some sense. But it kind of need to be done because realistically, there's no chance, even at $15, that you could live. But I would say most people that are in full-time, long-term, lifetime careers are making more than that. But I do think it's good that it went up to $15 because somebody that's young, like I remember when I started, I was making $9 an hour, and like it's impossible to get any money together. And at 15, it's still going to be very tough to do it. But it's just helping to kind of keep up with the inflationary pressure that you're going to feel.
Okay.
So I'm not opposed to it. I do think that people need to consider though. I remember they talked about it like I want to say like 5 years ago or 7 years ago, and I was like, it felt a little soon at that point, and I was like, this is just going to make a lot of things a lot more expensive. But no, I think it's good. Honestly, I think probably the biggest winner from that is going to be a lot of immigrants because there's so many immigrants that come here and start in a minimum wage job.
Yeah.
That I think that they'll be the ones that reap the rewards. Because again, I don't think the locals that are working minimum wage jobs that are in there for extended periods of time, like they're like, okay, I've been working here for 10, 12 years, they're not making minimum wage anymore. Mm-hmm. They're up in the like $17 to $19 an hour range.
Yeah, remember when IKEA first opened here, and I think they started with wages around $15 and still they couldn't get employees. And then they had to go to, I think, 17 and change.
Amazon, same thing. They started at 18 or something like that, and they went $21.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought, was kind of, my gosh, at this point, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like having to work for less than $15 an hour. Right? Like it's with the cost of everything, it's unsustainable, I think, to say the least. So obviously the concern as someone who's fearful of inflation, and we talked about this, is all of these things work, all these things cause inflationary pressure, right? That's going to be higher costs for those business owners, which in turn means they'll charge a higher price for the product that they're selling to consumers. Mm-hmm. And so those same consumers who are getting more in their take-home pay will then find that some things that they go out and buy are also more expensive. So very quickly, the increase in wage is offset by downward pressure on real wage, right? Which is like your effective wage, what you can buy, your purchasing power. So, but we got to sort of do something, and I don't think this is that bad. It's not that big of an increase.
No, I think, what was it before, like 13?
No, it's a bit more than that. It's 1380. I don't know.
I think my bigger concern for that demographic of people is that those jobs are being eliminated almost silently, but kind of rapidly. And I say, for example, like you look at a grocery store, it used to be that just like Superstore had 2 self-checkout machines.
Oh, I know. Man.
Now Superstore has like 15. Walmart has like 25 of them. Sobeys, who was super against it for the longest time, now also has them. And every store, Home Depot, has self-checkout machines. And so now you have 6 cash registers or 8 cash registers being monitored by one person. So realistically, they should be making it is well, in some cases, I really like self-checkout because I find most people don't. And so it's pretty quick to go through. But I think it's going to kind of put more pressure on that concept. And it's not just like because Nova Scotia raised it to $15. Everywhere across the board is raising minimum wages. And so as a whole, if you're a company and you're looking at this and you're already making that transition, this just kind of expedites that. So for me,
phase out some employees,
yeah, my bigger thing is like, what's what's the plan when a lot of these kind of jobs, these minimum wage jobs, get eliminated? Like, what's the
where do those
idea
people go there now?
Where do
Yeah.
those people go at that point? Because
Trades. Go into the trades.
they really should, honestly.
And
You
go
just
to 40 if you're a junior trade, 60 if you're a little bit up, 80 an hour if you're like a red seal or ticket or whatever it is.
yeah,
Might as well do that.
yeah.
But that's not an option for some people who maybe have limited mobility, who are a little bit more aged, right? To go up and start carrying lumber at a job site. The 65-year-old woman who's greeting me at Walmart is maybe not going to go up on the scaffolding.
I can see there's some of them that look pretty limber. Like
You would know.
For any of the ones that are listening that remember Chandler's grandma comments.
Geezer pleaser.
But yeah, that's something I don't know. And I guess it might just become a social assistance thing where on the bottom end, they basically just are paying that basic minimum living wage that they always talk about.
Well, one thing I hope people Googled after last episode was like income tax bracket creep here in Nova Scotia, and how a lot of these people that are going to slowly get moved up in tax brackets because of these wage increases are going to be frustrated when they start paying more income tax because our province here has not adjusted our income brackets to keep up with things like this. So that's a real thing. You should check into it, and you should probably be upset about it, but you're probably not, because there's a bunch of other things that people have said about.
Chandler just paid his taxes before he came on the mic last time.
I wish that was the case. I got something that, and actually was related to what we were talking about before we started here about, we were talking about, land and environmental credits and all these things. There is now a climate risk rating for listings that's already available in the States and is starting to come to Canada.
Oh, what?
Yep. A climate risk rating for a property. So, for
What do you
example,
mean? Oh no, I'm gonna fail this.
Ton-
I can already tell this is.
oh,
just
your
against
property's
me.
going to have a terrible rating. So they were talking an example about a property in Toronto that had a risk score of like 34 out of 100 based on heat, because some of the heat, it's becoming a little bit unbearable in Toronto at certain times, and in different neighborhoods, a property could have a climate risk having to do with heat.
So, like in the sense that, okay, all right.
And then they
all right.
brought up one in South End, Nova Scotia that had a little bit lower heat risk. However, they had a 91 overall risk score because it was on the water. And so people are going to start looking at these
what's
things.
the risk?
Like
Hurricanes, winds,
erosion, hurricanes,
humidity.
yeah, rising sea levels, all those things. But extreme weather. I
Are
mean,
you kidding me? I just got water frontage.
yeah, I mean,
This
if
has been
someone,
the safest place to put your money for a million years.
well, here's the
And
thing:
now
have you
this-
ever had a client
Who came up with this?
and been
who
on
came up with
waterfront,
this?
or have you ever looked at waterfront property with a client and kind of looked at the coastal line and been like, damn, man, like that tree used to be on grass and now it's halfway down the hill. This is a thing.
I saw the rot in the front of your house from the pool.
Yeah. I mean, my house might have a risk of someone drowning in that deep end. But I'm pretty far inland, but I'm up on a hill, right? Like all of these things. And I think it's the insurance companies driving
Honestly,
this big time.
Yeah, that's insurance companies. It's also, I feel like, from the ones like the coastal, like we've all seen videos, I feel like, in the last 2 years of a house being washed into the ocean.
Oh, 100%. Like I don't know to this day, when the river flooded in Calgary?
Yes.
Like how do those people ever get insurance on their home again?
I mean, I guess
'Cause
the
you need
insurance, it's all a risk-based assessment.
Man,
and so you
that's
probably
supposed
just
to be high
pay, you
insurance
pay a
rates.
lot of insurance. And the other thing is, actually, you know how they get their insurance? There's no overland flooding coverage. They've broken it out into segments. Even
Oh,
I renewed my insurance there yesterday, I think it was. And he's like, you don't have overland flooding insurance. You don't have, and then because I'm on septic, he's like, you don't have sewer backup insurance. And I'm like, okay, so what do you
What
guys
am I insured for?
What am I insured for right now? Like literally nothing. Like I was like the only thing, like earthquake. And I'm like, well,
Earthquake.
guess what? Let's take a look at the history of Nova Scotia. And the last time an earthquake actually caused a house to collapse, I don't think it's ever happened. Maybe the Halifax explosion, but I don't even think I'm covered for that.
Am I covered for explosions from the harbor? Like, sir, you are an hour drive away from the harbor. There's an explosion in Grand Lake.
I think there was one. Someone was telling me some history. I think a bomber plane or something crashed into the lake.
Really?
Yeah, they were messing around. The boys were messing around with the planes, and they crashed one.
Oh.
But that's actually really interesting. That is. I thought you were going to say it was more like a climate risk factor of like this house is obnoxious and is terrible on its energy
its footprint
efficiency
or whatever.
This
Right.
guy's a shitbag, and he's scoring a 0 out of 100.
No, I mean that'll probably be a thing too. But this is more about what climate risks could you encounter living in this home and owning this property.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can see that making sense in some aspect. It's going to be It's going to be weird though, because some of the houses aren't going to make any sense. Like I can see beautiful oceanfront houses up on the hills that are built really well, because it's like,
Well, man, what about PEI? What they just went through during this latest
climate risk. At some point, all the sand's going to be gone.
Yeah.
So you just get a 100 score because you know your house is going to go missing at some point.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm not looking forward to that. Everyone can screw it. My house is 120 feet away from the water, and I have 6 feet of retaining wall, so
There you go.
I'm safe.
It's going on the market soon.
Last question on that. Did they say anything? Did you read anything about trees? If you have a big tree in your yard, like I feel like here, the wind is blowing.
I don't think so, but I think that's sort of implied through your hurricane risk, one way or the other. I don't think they come out there with a tape measure.
Because then all that's going to happen is everyone's going to be like, all right, if I want a 0 climate score, I'm going to build my house in the middle of a field in the center of wherever I live, far away from water, with no trees around me.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the implication of it. But I think there'll still be people that'll pay for the risk to have the nice home. Right?
Yeah, true enough. It's like walk score. Walk score came out, and it's like, I probably have a walk score of 0, -10 now.
Yeah.
People are still going to move out there.
If I started walking to your house now, I'd be there maybe in time for, I don't know, spring. I was going to say Valentine's, but I think this episode comes out around Valentine's Day.
Interesting. Well, on that same note of weird online things taking place, have you heard of Real Messenger? It's actually Real Messenger because it's all capitals.
Let's say.
I'm going to go with a no.
I mean, I can't think. Okay, you just tell me what it is first, and then I'll tell you why it makes me cranky.
It's a social media platform for realtors and clients alike.
Oh.
It's designed to help agents get in front of their clientele. Now, I downloaded it because I had to see this. And I was like, first of all, I was like, who the hell would want to take, like, Instagram's fun. And like, it's bearable because you like mix a few realtors in there. But if like your whole page, like as realtors, we follow a lot of realtors. And I'm like, I've ruined my Instagram.
Yeah. Who would sign up to a social media site to see more realtors?
This is where I'm like, what's the logic behind what's going on? Like
someone needs to develop an app that filters out the realtor's account from my existing social media. That's an app that's got some legs to it.
That should be called Real. That would be real.
Yeah.
Versus like, this is literally like the fakest social media platform you've ever seen. Man, so I downloaded
my colleagues and like I love our office, but man, seeing and man, I guess I'm approaching middle age, but like seeing some older people like working on their TikToks for the old ticker talk,
just busting a move,
because a real estate thing told them to do it is one of the
down payment
worst things. Oh god, it's one of the worst things.
Anyways,
ever. Okay,
so it looks. I'd say it literally looks, I don't want to say identical, but very close to Instagram. I opened it. I'll show you here in a sec. And they're in the news because they just added what's called Real Moment. And they now have a video, and they threw this out there about 100 times, an AI tool, which helps clients see what they want to see and allow agents to share with them the info that they need. Well, basically, they were like, for example, the AI will help you find houses with pools if you want pools. And I'm like, I think they just called a filter. I don't know if that's AI or
everything's going to be deemed AI now. Just like, yeah.
Anyways, but it's literally just like Instagram. I want to pull it up here for you.
While you're pulling that up there, I'm going to read a little bit of realtor social media live feedback from a client. And this followed a post on my social media. And I'm quoting here. Can you give it a rest with this shit? Question mark. So I don't know if
that was
the people
one of yours?
there. Oh yeah, that's one of my clients. That's my buddy. He knows who he is.
Oh, okay. That's amazing.
I don't know that the world is demanding more social media platforms for realtors to express themselves.
Now, okay. So on the flip side, if you are into houses, this is like me with cars. I can stare at cars all day. I shop for them, whether I can afford them or not. And there's like no chance of me buying them. I'm constantly shopping for cars. You could do this with houses on here pretty easily, and it makes it a lot more accessible. So but this is what it is. Like, so you just scroll through.
This is actually the real thing here?
Yeah, this is the real thing. So it's just like Instagram, basically, right? And then if you click on one, it just pops up the little description in the main picture. Okay. And then it's got the more features and this and that. But for me, I was like, if you're truly shopping for real estate, like there's way better platforms than
there's all the websites that also provide that service,
but in a much better format for you. If you're actually buying, but as a whole, like this is kind of cool to browse like neat listings and stuff. I guess.
Okay.
But I don't see. Anyways,
do we have our 5 new followers? I want to shout them out here. You got them?
Oh, and he
Bring
sent
it
them over.
Man, I really appreciate everyone who's kind of joined the YouTube community lately. And a couple people have joined the Patreon again new, which is awesome.
I'm going to let you read them this time. I read all 5 last time.
Okay. Aaron Harmer or Aran Harmer.
What up,
Another person
Aaron?
called The Real Truth Matters. Continue the search always. Bit long-winded there, but we'll take it. Jonathan Vasquez. Daryl with just like Daryl 1L. And then, yeah, I think that's a crew. We got Rafa last week, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Rafa in the office. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Happy to grow the community. Another thing I wanted to bring up is, and I feel like I've made this point before, but a lot of people have been continually asking about these rates, and they're asking specifically about, well, will the rates come down? And I know what they mean is the variable rate, because they ask it and they say, because I see they just went up the other day. Because when the Bank of Canada announces a rate increase, people immediately think that applies to all mortgage rates. And it's not the case.
Yes.
It applies to the variable rates, but it doesn't apply to fixed rates. So when someone asks, are those rates going to come back down? It's really important to understand the difference. Again, variable rate is set by the Bank of Canada, has to do with overnight and settling accounts between different banks effectively. It's not directly correlated to the 5-year fixed rate. That is correlated to the bond rate. And if you want to make a case for why the 5-year fixed rates are going to start coming down, it's that typically your 5-year fixed moves in tandem with the 5-year bond yield with a gap of about 1% to 2%. So think about it this way. Just bear with me here. It's going to be boring for people who don't care, but it's really important that people understand. So a bank has an option to either invest in a mortgage or to invest in bonds. Because when a bank lends you money to buy a house, that is an investment for them. It returns the interest. So bonds are kind of boring, but they're super, super safe. So a bank could invest in a bond and maybe they get a return of 2%. Alternatively, they could invest in a mortgage, which is inherently a bit riskier. So they need to get more money back on the 5-year mortgage than they would on the 5-year bond. So if the bond rate is at 2, they would want maybe 3.5, on a mortgage to make it worth their time. And what we're seeing right now, and if you look back in time, like when the fixed rates were so low, it was because the bond rates were ridiculously low. They were like 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, something like that. So you could get all these fixed rates out there around 3, 3.5, even some were even lower than that at different times because they were closing that gap. Right now, the 5-year bond rate is, I think, just under 3. It's like 2.95, something like that.
Fluctuates around there. Yeah.
So that means the most that any fixed rate would normally be in this circumstance, 5-year fixed, the most would be just under 5. Like 5 points, maybe a bit less. Because again, historically, the gap has always been 1% to 2%, which means if the bond rate is at 3, rates really right now should be somewhere between 4 and 5.
Yep.
Just as possible for it to be close to 4 as it is to be close to 5. So if you look at the bond rate, it would make sense based on history and how these things move that those 5-year fixed rates should be coming down here in the not too distant future.
Yeah. The 2 things I want to add to this, everything I agree with, is that one thing is that banks issue the bonds to fundraise capital to lend out. So if they're issuing bonds, they'll match. And they'll match the government. Let's say they issue them at 3%, then the bank will put on its margin of another percentage point and then relend it out. So they'll say, Chandler, give me $100,000, we'll give you 3%. And then they're going to go, Neal, you need $100,000 and we're going to charge you 4%. We're going to make the 1% in between for doing the deal. So that's the one thing just to consider too when you look at the bonds out there. The second thing I was going to add is that, like I was saying last week, is as monetary supply shrinks, it's going to be harder to fundraise capital unless people are going to be investing in bonds. Does that mean that they're going to have to issue them at they're going to have to issue a higher rate of return to try and bring capital in?
But
that's what they're already doing. But
and this is exactly what happens. And so
continue?
The logical question, I just explained that there's a gap between the two, but then people are like, well, then how are bond yields set? And bonds, because they're so secure and they're so safe, people turn to bond investing when their confidence in the market goes down.
Yeah.
Right? And the more demand there is for bonds, ironically, like the lower their yield, right? Because people are more anxious to buy them, and they will accept a lower return on them. So right now, where people don't have a lot of confidence in the economy, they don't have a lot of confidence in the markets moving forward. There's more demand for bonds, which then drives down the return. Because people say, okay, maybe this bond is only offering 3%, but I'm happy to just get my conservative 3%. I'm going to buy more bonds. And the next person say, oh, I want something safe and secure too. And they might have to pay and only get a 2.7% return or a 2.5, et cetera, et cetera. So
will that balance out? Or will that will there be more people with money that want to be safe? Or will there be not enough money in the market and they'll have to offer higher returns to try and fundraise capital?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Like if banks are look, we, even though on average in a market situation like this, people turn to bonds, but monetary supply is shrinking so fast and people aren't getting the money they need and they're losing returns all over the place.
Well, people aren't going to take the money out and put it in their bank account. You know what I mean? Like they're going to put it to work somewhere.
Yeah. So you would expect that it's going to continue to be similar to history where it would be more people investing in bonds looking for that safer return.
I would think so. The other part of this is the big question, and I'm curious to see, we're 1 week removed from our last, the market's going crazy, and I had 20 offers on a place the other day, lost multiple offers on another place that had been on the market for a little while.
What the hell? I had a duplex listed in Dartmouth, nothing. Nice little duplex. One came on a little bit cheaper than ours, a little bit worse condition. They had 7 offers. I was like, bruh, nobody called me.
Listing agent does matter. I'm just teasing. No, listen,
it's on the same team, bro.
It's been a fickle market, and also like your timing was a little bit different because you had been on the market a little bit earlier, right? Like, and investment properties are kind of tricky right now because they're so much cash flow dependent.
2 types of listing agents in this world. You can look at their shirt and you can know immediately.
Oh my god, how the turns have tabled. But the other question, or my thought is, the market's bubbling a little bit here again, at least locally.
No, it does feel it. Yeah.
And if we get back into a situation where you can get a 5-year fixed at under 4.5%, people are going to go from, oh, I can't believe I can't get a rate at 3 anymore, to, oh my gosh, 4.4 is a wicked rate, because people have recency bias, and in the grand scheme of things, that is a pretty darn good rate.
It's a good rate overall. Yeah.
And so if that starts to happen, are we going to get this run again? And as soon as we do, are we? This is a double-edged sword, man. I want the bank rates to go down because I have a lot of variable products, and I like selling real estate, and I like when real estate goes up in value, right? Yeah. However, have we done enough to actually curb inflation? That remains to be seen, because all of the central banks now, Canada included, have basically said we're pressing pause. Almost all of them have said that, right? The Fed said that, so if all the central banks, the major central banks, are pressing pause, that means we're going to see how this pans out, and will we have done enough to actually slow inflation? And if we start seeing 5-year fixed rates in the mid-4s or below, and the market starts to run, we know what the real estate market does to drive the rest of the economy. I don't know.
So I've brought this up on here before, and that the rate movements might not be they're not strictly tied to inflationary things, like inflationary objectives. So they're not just moving the rates around to control inflation. I'm going to throw this out there for all my conspirators. Is it a larger global economic machine at play where when they're raising rates, a lot of times it's also to help protect the value of their currency, because they're reducing the supply out there and it makes it harder to get, which makes it more valuable. And right now, there is a bit of chatter in the background going on that the East versus West going on, or North America kind of losing its dominance over Asian markets, and people starting to trade goods outside of the US dollar, which could cause a collapse on this. And so part of me believes that it's a mixture of we're raising rates to protect the value of our currency on a global scale while trying to not completely nuke our economy. Right. And they're in this teetering point of if we don't, we'll end up nuking our economy because our currency will become so devalued. But if we do, then the economy itself can't operate within its systems. And that's why
simultaneously trying to steal all their human capital in a form of mass immigration.
Well, and maybe steal the human capital, but also just try and prop up our economy more, right? By being we make it so valuable because we're having people suck up our the money by having to use it all, right? So we have more people here, so that $1 billion gets trickled out and it's actually required. So anyways, I look at this now and I'm I honestly believe a lot of this is handled more on a global scale.
Oh, there's a lot of collusion now between the central banks. There's no question about that.
collusion, and it's just even like
But that makes sense.
this is
right?
like all the countries I think we forget are like somewhat at war in some aspect. Like I think there's always another country trying to take over. So it's like even if Canada's not an aggressor, they always have to be on the defense. Canada's really soft in general, I think, for this stuff. But the States, being a superpower, are in a constant like vow for power against the rest of the world. And so like a lot of that, part of that is like your resources, your currency, like, there's so much that goes into it. And so sometimes I think that we're feeling it at our level, and it feels like it's like, holy shit, what's going on? And they said they weren't going to do this. And it's like they had full intent not to do this. But then things got switched around because of something that's taking place in a different part of the world that's going to impact us, or it might be like a chess move from another country trying to change it. And this goes back to my whole talk of like, I believe the world order is going to change. But anyways, I don't want to go too far down that path, but I'm just like, I think that the interest rate hikes...
You're going on the rabbit hole there, but
I am going down the rabbit hole. On a high level, I do think the interest rate hikes are also tied to more than just taking control of inflation within our country. Because I think inflation's going to start to chill. I just came from the dealership, and he said, yeah, we're starting to have... He said, he's like, supply's catching up. We might even have an oversupply. So you see that. A lot of stores you see...
An oversupply of Ford Raptors? How could that be?
Shopping a Ford Raptor. If anyone's got an allocation on a Ford Raptor R, holla at your boy, because I want that one. And yeah, so there's that going on. I think there's stores that are starting to catch up on the amount of food they have. I was messaging someone who I think might be listening about a store that they own. They sell food, and it sounds like he mentioned that sales did slow a little bit for the foods that they were selling. So I think as a whole, I think we're going to catch up, and I think prices will come down pretty quickly to follow. I think we're already seeing it on the trades world. Like, it was so obvious in my painting quotes, because I went from like painting a unit for $1,200, $1,500, pandemic hit. It was $1,700, $2,300, $3,000 by the top of it, and they couldn't come out immediately, and no one would beat that price for me. And now already I have two painters calling me, they're just drilling themselves back down. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, like this is inflation's coming back down. Like and they're like the obvious, really quick to see it happen people. But because we saw all their projects get canceled, I think it's going across the board. So yeah, I think the inflationary stuff is going to basically stop. Like I don't think people have just stopped spending. The money's not out there. And a big part of our inflationary pressure was supply chain issues, which have been remedied. Like the cost to ship a container across the earth has come down like 60%, 70%, right? And so you're seeing like the waves of stuff. It's already happening. Like I go to Home Depot, and a light fixture before the pandemic crap and the Suez Canal and all this bull crap was $20. Then shipping costs went up 80% to 800%, whatever, went ballistic. Now light fixture $60. You're literally paying $40 extra in shipping effectively. But now I can see they've kept their price there. They're trying to, at least, but I'm not shopping there anymore. I just go online and I can order it from a multiple online retailers for $20 again. Because they can get it here shipped again for that price. What's going to happen is Home Depot's like, oh shit, we haven't sold 800 of these light fixtures now.
Bring it back down.
We have to bring it back down to get these moved, because sitting on inventory is an even bigger issue, especially if the inventory is depreciating.
Well, this reminds me of that episode when I
think
said
this is a bigger problem.
Yeah. I remember when I was like, oh, this is why it takes so long for inflation to trickle through, or for these rate increases to trickle through, is there is also that thing when people stop spending as much, and then inventory goes up, and then they have to cut prices. So hopefully that's what will happen here. Hey, thanks for listening to this point. If you haven't already, please like, follow, and subscribe. We can see this stuff, and we see that most of you watching are not subscribing. Can you do us a solid? Subscribe, please, and thanks. In the second half, we talk about modular homes. This company, it's super cool what they're going to do, whether we think it's the future, whether our generation or future generations are even going to be on board for this. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to go on the Metaverse, and we're going to answer some questions that you guys have. So keep listening. Thanks so much.
Now, I think this is a great time to consider living in the Metaverse.
Before we do that, let's get into our key player of the week.
Let's get into our key player of the week. Well, we have two key players, technically. It's a father-son duo. I'm going to absolutely mangle their names.
Okay.
So, Galliano Terramani and Paulo Terramani, they are the founder and co-founder of Boxabl. Many of you guys, I would imagine, have heard of them because they've done such a great job with creating a brand, creating hype. They've been involved in some serious stuff, but Boxabl as a whole is a modular home company, and they're the ones that you see, they come flat packed as a square box, and they unfold. So the walls unfold, the roof unfolds.
Very cool.
Yeah, they're 375 square feet. They're $60,000 a pop. They have 160,000 pre-orders. I think it's lined up as now. Only 8 to 10,000 of those have actually placed deposits, but still unbelievable number. Like no other housing corp or any construction company has ever done anything like this before. They've raised $140 million. They have sold. I'm sure a lot of people heard about how Elon Musk said at he's buying communities around his SpaceX facilities. He plans to use Boxabl to put all the units there because, again, they can deliver 100 units and they can put a house up in a day or two with 6 people.
We talked about this one time because we're both a big believer in modular home and that could be the future and all these things. And they got hammered by the supply chain issues as well. And so they started being price prohibitive. But the whole idea was like, all right, you can get these economies of scale. You can build them the same every single time. They're built in a factory. So, there's
they can be shipped anywhere in the world. Anyone can put them together. You don't need any special trades. They put, like you said, it's built in a factory, so it's consistent. The quality's high.
It's pre-inspect. The ideal scenario is that all the municipalities get on board, that you don't even really have to have building inspectors out there because it's built to code, right? So you don't have to someone come and check when it's framed, come and check when it's insulated, come and check when it's weather tight, come and check the electrical. It's like, no, it's international code or at least national code, regional code. It's good to go. And that way you can really speed up the process. It is crazy. It is the future. I remember seeing one where as a publicity stunt, they built I think a 4-unit building in a couple days because they had the slab there. They stacked them up and they had it going. It's crazy.
Exactly. It makes a ton of sense. Because of that, we made them player of the week because I think it might not necessarily be their company that changes the game. I think they're already starting to, but I think it'll start kind of the wave of the modular home industry. They've also created like a branding thing around it that I thought was amazing. They race Lamborghinis and Teslas towing Boxables. They've dropped cars on them. They've made all these YouTube videos. They've been very active social media wise to make it a thing. And I think without even realizing, I followed them maybe a year ago. Anyways, they've now grown. They've delivered a few thousand of these. And again, key player of the week because it's an amazing thing that they're doing. I'm super excited. I think it is taking the world by storm. You are seeing there's lots of other modular home companies that have dropped off more units, but a big part of making it known is making it publicly accepted and people have the knowledge of doing it. Yep. I think Tesla's a prime example. They weren't the first electric car company. They weren't the only electric car company. They still are not. But by them bringing everything to the masses and making it so exciting, I think it actually was the thing that pushed it over the hump and got everybody involved.
Yeah, branding matters, and you have to get people excited about the product at the end of the day. And that's something that historically there was a stigma attached to modular and prefab homes. So to turn it on its head and be like, no, this is cool, this is innovative, this is cost effective, this is the future, this is environmentally friendly, this is all these things that address all these issues that we say we want to get ahead on. It's crazy. They're doing a good job.
So, killing it. You guys, if by some chance you see this, I would love to chat with you. We would love to chat with you.
Yeah, we'll be your local distributor.
We will be. Yeah, exactly. We'll sell lots of them here in Halifax.
Let's do it.
Now, I kind of want to segue from this into something else. Maybe I'll talk about the Metaverse at the end. But when I was like reading about Boxabl, what they've done and looking at them, and my biggest thing when I looked at them was like, people here in North America just aren't going to bite into this because we all have this expectation of
the White House picket fence. Different from
picket
the
fence, 2-car garage, a big yard, a pool, all this shit. And then I was like, this is kind of our problem. Like, this is why a big part of our housing problem is this expectation that we all live like this. Like, it's kind of insane.
Buddy, it is not just our housing problem. This is the problem we have with
everything. Like,
everything.
What's this concept that we all get to live in these, like, they're effectively epic homes. Like, our standard of living has elevated so much, and I think people forget. Like, it wasn't so long ago that like what's considered an average home now, everyone's like, it's just a little split entry, 1,800 square feet. Like, and I'm like, it was like
someone's dream home not that long ago.
No,
it's because we raise our kids to tell them that they are special and they deserve the best, even if they don't and they ain't. You know what I mean? Like. We do teach these generations this. No, like, I love my kids. They are very special. And they're more special than your kids. But you have to go out and get it. Yeah. Right? Like, it's not just going to be given to you, which is the other thing. Like, whenever there's that, whenever there's a landlord situation on social media, someone drops the gem. You all know this gem. Housing is a human right. Okay? And I agree with that. But like living on Spring Garden Road is not a human right. Living in
A downtown
my home
compound
for free or my property for free is not your human right.
Yeah.
That's like food is a human right, but it doesn't mean I can just go to, my favorite restaurant
fancy steakhouse
and treat it like an all-you-can-eat buffet, right? Like, so, there's always lines to these things, but I totally agree with you. Like this, everyone wants more and more and more, and they feel like they should have more and more and more. And how many people do you know that, live in a home that is more grand than their parents' home, despite being in a weaker financial situation than their parents?
Do I know that their first house was almost more grand than their parents' house?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I am in my selling mostly first-time home buyers, and a ton of them are buying a house that's literally bigger or more, well, definitely more expensive than their parents' house when they bought it.
Yeah, but that's relative. That's adjustable
inflation.
below.
That's how it goes. But the actual house too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them, their parents are like, damn.
And they don't all have better incomes or more savings than their parents. That's for sure. Like some people are like, I'm not sure if this home will cut it. And I'm like, you only were able to manage $15,000, right? Like, which takes a long time to save here. I'm not knocking it.
Yeah.
But because of leverage, because of this crazy world we live in, you can buy this home for over $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the fact that you were only able to muster up $15,000.
Yep.
Like, pump the brakes there, big rig,
Yeah.
right? Like, temper your expectations a little bit. But it's the same thing with jobs, man. Like, it's why we can't get anyone to work any jobs. It's why, people just think they should have.
So
the mantra thing, that's why you got to sell it as hip.
And this
you got to
is
sell it as a lifestyle.
Exactly.
You
This is
gotta,
why they're creating the
carbon
brand.
footprint.
I just came back from Quebec this weekend, and I'm pretty darn confident the house I stay in was modular, and I would say most people would have been pretty fired up to stay in that, like in a home like that.
Some of them are sick, yeah.
It was 5-bedroom, 5-bath, big open main areas. You walk in, 20-foot ceiling. Like, it was a beautiful home, and it to me looked like it was made of 6 pieces. And so I think it might be the way of the future. I'm very strong believer that it's the way of the future. But I just had that moment when I was watching this, and I was like, we have this housing crisis, and I'm like,
well,
the
people
expectation for people on locations and the way that they live and stuff like that, like, is so high. Like, you should have to go through the stages. Like, I'm very curious to see how this generation is going to age, and or was it just the same as before? Like, did our parents' generation do the equivalent with their parents? Like,
well, go back and watch our conspiracy episode. I talked a little bit about like the idea of keeping up with the Joneses. Like that was a thing that kind of came up, even though the original reference dates back to the early 20th century, it's more mid-century, 70s and 80s, and when credit cards became a thing. And you could borrow to have the newest appliance and to have a new TV, and you could start getting all these things. And these suburbs were marketed as a better life, right? And we were sold on these things, and it just kind of grew and grew from there. So it's not exclusive to this generation. Like, it's just this is the children of those people. So like they have it to the nth degree.
when does it go away? When does it go away is my question.
Well, this is the other thing. People are like, I can't believe, I can't live in Halifax when my parents got to live in Halifax. Like, Halifax was not the same Halifax
When your parents lived
when
in
your parents
Halifax.
live here, right? So it's comparing apples to oranges. It would be the same as saying, like, I can't believe I can't live in Toronto now, right? Like, things change. So the equivalent of, say, Halifax or some of the neighborhoods of Halifax that we now think of as in Halifax that were once upon a time not in Halifax, right? So yourself
also-
living in Enfield, like people living in Truro, people living in the South Shore, people living in the Valley, like those were the equivalent of Halifax to some degree a generation ago. And I remember my grandfather bought a house when he came back from the war on Quinn Street, which is basically in the center of Halifax. And at the time, people were like, why are you living way out there on Quinn Street?
On Quinn.
On Quinn. Cost like $7,000, I think.
I would die to live on Quinn.
Yeah, it's a lovely street right in town, but at the time it was like, why are you way out there? And then my parents bought a property near Springvale, and everyone said the same thing, like, my gosh, way out there? Right? That's not that long ago. This is how cities evolve. So people
So
now
you're
going to
feel differently about me living in Enfield in 30 years.
In 30 years, maybe I'll visit you in Enfield.
No, I get what you're saying completely. And you also got to think, like, the standard of living has increased so much, because I feel like when he would have bought, let's say your grandfather bought on Quinn Street, like, it would have been dirt roads come like Bedford.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like Sackville areas, there would have been still dirt roads and stuff. and like no sewer systems, no whatever. Now there's transit and paved roads and and it goes on and on. And so it's like even when you go to Kentville now, it's like they have fully set up systems and all of the resources. It's like everyone's standard of living has increased immensely in those areas. Like I don't know. So anyways, I just again
it's also
going
their expectations and what they're seeing online. It's a whole
my
generational
whole
problem.
point of this is that I think there's a lot more to it, and I really hope that stuff like this, the modular housing, can take off. But I do think there needs to be like an adjustment of people's priorities in North America, where it's not so like based on like items. It really is, because it seems like everyone's chasing this, like with new cars, new technology, new clothes. I think a lot of us fall guilty to it. And it's hard not to. I'm guilty of it. Like I'm not saying this like I'm not, but it's just like I think it ruins like your ability to enjoy any of the stuff that you have. But I have a weird feeling that these modular home companies, like even like Boxabl potentially, I think where they'll pick up is like sending them down to Mexico and to alternative places, because I find those communities and those places seem way less hellbent on the stuff. Like,
but here's the thing. Here's an example. Like Priuses, no offense saying what they're like, Priuses are not cool cars.
The new one's getting cooler.
Okay, maybe they're getting cooler now. They're not that nice looking. They're not
They're
that
weird
flashy,
as hell looking.
right? But there's certain people who bought into it, and it's largely to do with hype. Some of it was cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of it was hype, right? And so I think there's going to be some people out there that are going to be so fired up that they live in this hip modular community that is
this is where it's
new,
gonna
and if you
start.
celebrate, and the Hydrostone that we now all think is super, super cool, at the time was built as dirt cheap emergency housing,
Yeah.
right? Townhouses because half the city was leveled,
Yeah.
right? And they need to slap these suckers up as quick and as cheap as possible to
Yeah.
house displaced individuals. So
Yeah.
who knows? Fast forward how minds can
So
change. That's some of the
Boxabl's
most
the
expensive real
Prius.
estate.
If the CEO of Boxabl hears this, the founders hear this, they're going to be pissed. I'm like, we ain't no Prius, we're Tesla, bro.
Whatever.
But
That's a
no, I
semantics
see it.
thing from-
Boxabl's the Prius. So then someone's going to come out with like the more Tesla style concepts, which are going to be a lot nicer. Again, what I saw in Quebec, like I feel like to me, it was like it was like a rectangle in the middle. It was like 2 stories of rectangle in the middle, and then 4 squares on the outside. And so it was a bedroom with a bathroom in each room. So bedroom, bathroom, and they were identical. Bedroom, bathroom, bedroom, bathroom. So they were just stacked up. And then I think the 2 big ones in the middle were stacked up. And
Really?
the main big one
Jeepers,
had
that's a big project.
the living room and the kitchen, and then the one on the bottom had another like living room space and like a laundry storage closet and a bedroom. And so, well, but if their units are built like those are
Yeah.
that's only technically 3 pieces,
And the
they
other
just
thing is
multiply
that-
that 3 pieces 100 times, and you can build that.
There's also different degrees of modular and prefab. Like there's already companies doing these things where they will pre-build you all of your walls.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot of that going
Right.
on.
There's a lot of that going on, and even concrete tilt up to some degree is a prefab. And
Yep.
then you throw in 3D printing and what they might be able to do here moving forward. That it's going to economize housing, which is what we all kind of hope is going to happen one way or the other. But people have to buy in because everyone wants their own custom home, right? Like I won't even get rid of my old heat because I like my radiators too much. I want to have those nice, beautiful radiators.
Are you legit? Oh, the big ones.
Yeah, they're lovely, and they provide the best heat. So whatever, man. I'm going to eat it on the oil cost a little bit. Throw a couple heat pumps in there. I want my nice looking radiators.
Don't. Okay. All right. All right.
They're beautiful.
No, yeah, they are. They are. I had one house that had them, and I remember removing them, and I wanted to sell them. I could have sold them, but they were just £1 billion, and I was busy, and I didn't bother. But I think I did sell a few.
I sold a few. I sold
Yeah.
a few to one place. First 4 were hard or easy, and then the next 4 were very difficult.
The other thing, this is where I'm definitely transitioning to Metaverse, no matter what you say at this point,
Let's do it.
is that this Boxabl thing kind of makes sense to me, because I'm like, you know what? You can work remotely. Metaverse is going to be all your could be all your social, and it could be your work. So it doesn't really matter where the hell you work. So you can just buy one of these Boxabl things for 60 grand and go plop one down anywhere. You own your own house. It's a modern, clean space. It's up in like 2 minutes. You hook onto the internet and power, and off you go.
Well, here's who's
And-
going to not like that
Who's not going to like that?
is the government who wants to, tax you as much as they can on the value of your house, and who also doesn't like people owning more than one property now, and doesn't like someone not being a resident here, because the beautiful
But
thing
they're
about
still,
this
they're
too-
gonna, no, but they're going to own all that. Like they're just going to be, not, instead of being right in the core, they might be somewhere slightly outside of town, which they're
Yeah.
not going to love, because usually it costs more to service people all over the place.
Yeah.
But,
like if the whole point is like I can live, work wherever, it'd be nice to get a couple modulars here, a couple modulars there. I guess you know what, I'm part of the problem, because I just keep turning about like how can I make these rentals and how can I own as many of them as possible.
yeah, and this guy said a bunch. I'm talking about having one that you live in. I'm not
I
talking
need
about having
one
like
for
6
me,
of them. Oh my
6
God.
for tenants. Let's go. The cost per door is
I
actually
said it,
pretty
and
darn
Chandler's
good.
like, oh yeah, I could put a modular in Lunenburg and another one in Chester, another one in
scale
Cape Breton,
these
and 2 more in France.
Yeah. And how dare they?
Anyways, the
All right.
actual news headline that I want to talk about on the Metaverse, there's no good way to transition into it, but I just wanted to bring it back up because it's going on in the background. Yeah, it lost all the hype, but that hasn't stopped people from going with it. The main development, the largest development company, or one of the largest within the Metaverse. And so what a development company is within the Metaverse is they literally develop properties within the Metaverse. So like when you think about it, you have to build out those buildings, right? Like it's not like a click and paste thing. Like they have to be designed and fabricated, but online. And so
But
yes,
also the actual platform of the metaverse.
there's a platform that it runs
Yeah.
on, and then there's the actual, like when you're in there, the graphics have to be designed, the structure has to be created. Now, yes, engineering doesn't necessarily apply as much in the sense of like weight and stuff like that, but it does apply in the fact of like usability to go through it and actually have it function as a building within the
Bandwidth,
space.
maybe? I don't know
Yeah.
the term. I want to say bandwidth.
And so they've been able to do 100 million square feet already, which would be insane because obviously like you can copy and paste a floor and then you just added 100,000 square feet. So it doesn't take much to do that, but there is a lot of design that's still involved in making it run. So anyways, this company is called Land Vault. They are one of the largest. They've done
I've heard
100
of them
million
before,
square feet. They're in California. They have now opened another office in Dubai. And the reason I thought this was interesting is to see that these companies are continuing to expand and do what they need to do. Like they're still building out, they're still having customers. And so their reason for opening in Dubai is a good majority of Dubai real estate, or maybe not a majority, but a good portion of the real estate in Dubai is purchased from people either out of town, like just people who live there, but they're out of town on business or traveling, or the people who are just out of town and are investing in that city.
Right.
And so what they're going to do is they are going to model a lot of these buildings that are being built. And so you can then throw on a headset and you can walk through the buildings. And I thought like this is a prime example of like where it makes a lot of sense. Here it's not going to be super exciting because people are like, well, I'm here anyways. I'm just going to come look at it. And we
What
don't
you say is like they'll be there for some sort of almost like investor tourism, and then they'll come and see a bricks and mortar property vault.
maybe,
place.
but guys that are buying like $5 million condos, I don't think they really give a shit. Like they'll probably be like, yeah, I'm busy. Let me slap on this headset. So they're going to slap on the headset. They're going to be able to tour through the whole thing.
Right.
Somebody is going to be able to give them that whole wanted tour. And they're like, yeah, I like it. They were already buying based on some photos and some potential renderings.
But you can see the irony
This guy's
of a metaverse office having to open a bricks and mortar location to sell units, right? Like you can see that irony.
No, can't see it. So what they didn't open the office to sell from.
Okay.
Not to sell to people. They also all open the office to sell to developers to buy their service.
Right.
Because at the end of the day,
Okay, I see
they're
what you're saying.
converting a bricks and mortar business to
Oh,
the
I see
internet.
what you're saying. I see
And
what
so
you're
if
saying.
you want to
Yeah.
get a developer to sign on, you have to meet with him in person.
Right.
Right. So part of like just that aspect of gaining clients.
Okay.
But then once it's set up, no, the idea is not this guy. Nice try, trying to poke holes.
Yeah.
This is.
I would love to
why
be
are
like
you
trying
such a
to-
hater? We've talked about this.
hate
A
the
lot of time you
metaverse.
have to leave here to run to a showing, and I'm like, what if you could just sit here and throw on your headset and be done in 2 seconds?
That does sound pretty good.
Just think about it, you'd never have to drive around the city, like unless you want to.
Yeah. No,
I'm telling you, it makes total sense, and I think where you're going to see it first is on. Well, you're already seeing it is new construction, and especially like it starts in the most expensive places in the world that are. It really makes sense because people aren't buying that aren't local, right? So and it'll slowly trickle down, and then you'll start to see it on new construction projects in Toronto, and then you'll get to the point where like you'll start seeing it on new construction homes.
Yeah, the virtual reality component of it, I think, is obvious for sure. Yeah.
Especially like again, if you go to a modular, like people aren't going to necessarily be able to see the home. Like, you know what I mean? They can't like it might be like you buy it
you're
through
buying it
that
out. Not
and then
up,
they just
yeah.
drop it off the next week. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So anyways, I just want to point out there because I'm just like, Metaverse is still trucking along. There's businesses in there that if they're run right, they're still doing it. And I think they're honestly going to catch on.
Just to wrap up, because I think we should wrap up here. Unless you have more metaverse news there you want to share.
No. He's a hater.
No, I think it's interesting for sure. We had a couple people reach out through social media and through all the different platforms with questions. I want to say thanks, and we responded to a lot of them kind of one-on-one. Is there a question on there that like jumped out to you that you want to talk
I'm
about
opening
here?
the questions here now. Was there a question on there that jumped out to you?
No, because I mean I fired back response I think to most of the people who had questions. I'm curious though if you had any water damage issues over the big.
I did have some water damage issues. The first one being is my house froze. I didn't actually get water damage, but my personal home went down to 0 degrees, and then we had people run over there and break in and put heaters in.
And nothing froze. Nothing like no
I
pipes
think
burst?
things froze, but nothing burst because I put all PEX.
Yeah. Pepsi has a bit more give than copper.
Yeah, so I got lucky, but like when I turned on all the taps, it was like you could hear it fighting. But somehow nothing is leaking right now. But then in one building, we found out we had exposed pipes in the basement that froze. Another one, the heaters and hot water tanks couldn't keep up. And then we also had some pipes in a building that we're renovating that they just did the drywall. Floors are going in, kitchens are starting today, and the basement flooded out because a second floor pipe broke in one of the bathrooms. So the fresh drywall's
Inside,
coming out
yeah,
in the
that's
basement,
tricky.
and the 2 kitchens are being delayed. But to be expected, and that's also why construction insurance is so much more expensive. How'd you make out? There were some interesting videos I think I saw you post.
But not great. I was so concerned about these 2 particular units because I've had the building for a while and they have frozen before. They're right over a carport and the wind's just whipping under there, and the plumbing is basically only just covered by aluminum soffit, like not much to protect this stuff. So I reached out to those 2 tenants and I was like, listen, can you guys just run your hot water gently really for the next 2 days in your sink and in your tub? The reason being is as that water goes down, the copper drains, and as the hot water supply comes through, it warms up the cavity, right? Like, and it keeps that whole area actually warm. And then also say, open the bathroom cabinets, turn up the heat in the bathroom, and close the bathroom door because it will keep that whole area from freezing. And that building went unscathed. So it worked, except a couple people called and were like, man, we have like no hot water. And I'm like, oh yeah, because we've been running 2 units nonstop hot water. One of them was in actually way in Europe. Like, oh, we're not back until February 10th. I'm like, I need to go into your unit then because you're definitely going to have those pipes freeze if you're not running any water for this whole time. So that building was fine. Had a radiator blow. It was actually pretty cool. The actual physical radiator blew because it was airlocked. It was really strange. So this one particular radiator was airlocked, which meant the hot water couldn't get to it. So it froze and it cracked while the rest of the system was fine.
What type of radiator?
It was an old cast iron radiator, blew out the side of it.
Oh, okay. So we're talking like a big, if you guys have seen those before, like the big metal radiators that weigh 10,000 pounds. They're about 4 feet tall. Yeah. They're like, sometimes they're artistic looking and stuff.
Yeah. The nice thing is we're just able to bypass it. So that one wasn't too bad. That was the easiest one. But that came on the heels of one unit that, a connection right by the furnace blew. Another one, two houses had that happen effectively where there were bursts right at the furnace. One of them happened during the thaw the day after. So like we got through everything. We thought we were good. But the next day as things thawed out, it burst. One of the others, she just couldn't figure. She's like, I don't know. Like I've got I couldn't figure out because she couldn't get any water to come out. Like, so her pipes were frozen, but she had a furnace and it was heating the house a little bit. Why wasn't it keeping the whole basement warm? And the reason was that her radiators weren't getting up to full temperature and the furnace wasn't getting up to full temperature because it was literally just pissing water down below. So like it couldn't get the hot water through everywhere. So that blew. And then my property in Lunenburg, I don't know if you remember this, but there's the one unit that was demoed out and it's just an empty hollow shell where you could borderline see outside.
Yeah.
I forgot about that property. And so
there's pipes in there.
Yeah, there isn't really, but the unit above it and adjacent to it, like, were made cold because of that. Because I sort of thought, well, there's no water in there, and like, so yeah, four bursts in total.
It's coming out of a polar vortex where all his buildings blew up, and you're wearing a tropical shirt.
Yeah.
Just
I'm in vacation mode, so we're going to Costa Rica in April.
We're trying to soothe the soul. God damn, you had a busy weekend.
Yeah, man, and I'm so fortunate that my dad is super handy, man. Like, he came over, we looked at the first furnace, we shut it off, changed out the parts, good to go. Then one of my plumbers, man, like, he's done so much work for me. He came out on a Sunday because soldering is pretty hard. When it's copper, like, you're soldering it, even if you have these shark bites, like, you know, oftentimes you're having to solder something. And he came out and he got those. But actually today, one of my property managers, she's like, there's water in this closet and we think it's because the outdoor faucet froze and now it's leaking into her office. So the battle's not done yet. I think there's one more. That would make 5.
Hot damn.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a
I will
long
say,
weekend.
I mean, you guys probably know I own a restoration company. We had some interesting calls. We had some pretty big ones
I
too.
bet.
Like some massive offices because there was nobody in them all weekend. So on top of their pipes breaking, they just kept running all weekend.
Oh, so much water. You'd think someone would go in and check. I was at least checking on these things. Like, hey, we need to check this place out. And then it occurred to me, like, oh my God, the skate park. And I got to go over and I have to check that one. And you get a little better each time. So now I'm like, okay, what are we going to do next time to make sure this doesn't happen again? But
Heat trace, man. Heat trace your life. It is expensive though. But the one thing I did mention, I saw on my phone here, and this is local to Nova Scotia. So for all you guys that are outside of Nova Scotia, we'll try and explain this as best as we can. But the headline is the Nova Scotia government pays $34 million for an unfinished hotel to create a new patient care facility. I have looked at this hotel 800,000 times since it started going up, wondering what the hell it was, because it had no branding or labeling on any of the fences anywhere for the longest time. And it was just
that's pretty typical.
Giant rectangle coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes some of them were like, New Marriott, come in here.
Yeah,
New
I
Marriott,
suppose.
New
Sometimes
Marriott.
they have the brand lined up before time. Other times they build the hotel and then they get a brand in there.
Very true. And this is right at the entrance to our very big industrial park / shopping district.
Yeah.
And it is actually very big, even for across the country. And so anyways, it's been under construction for a while now that I think about it. And so I'm interested to see that they just bought that. It's unfinished, so that in itself to me is concerning because I'm like, all right, now the government's going to step in to finish this bad boy, so prepare for another $34 million that gets spent.
Yep.
And how long until it opens? But I actually am kind of happy that they've stepped up and pulled trigger.
They're buying it for like transition beds effectively.
Yeah.
And I think they're building a facility out there in Bears Lake as well, which people really complained about because everyone wanted to, it should be right in Halifax. But there's a lot of people coming from Truro and other areas that Bears Lake is a really convenient location. So they bought this almost done hotel for $34 million. It seemed a bit pricey.
It does seem a bit pricey. It's being built by Cresco.
Like for that same 30.
Oh, it was Marriott. It was a Marriott branded hotel.
Okay. So
under construction since 2019. That's what I'm talking about. That's a hot minute.
Yeah, that is a while. But like for that same $34 million, they could build like 100 unit apartments, at least 100 apartments, which is bigger than that building. But also, the reason I reference that is because I do like this approach, which is, to buy stuff that's already built or under construction. I think they need to apply that to housing.
Yes. You mean like buying housing from like projects that are started?
Correct, or building new apartment buildings. That's the only thing that's going to move the needle for housing.
I like the idea of them buying more, like if they see projects that are almost complete and buying them from the developers.
Yeah.
The problem that they're going to face, and this is what I'm bringing up to this, is the sale recently on the Dalhousie campus here in Halifax on Seymour Street of the building called the Seymour.
Mm-hmm.
It's 141 units. It's on Seymour Street. What do you think it sold for?
How many units?
141.
And this was like a residential being sold to Dalhousie?
Nope, sold to a REIT.
Oh, sold to a REIT?
Student housing REIT based in Toronto.
How many units?
141.
141.
This is an amazing location for everyone listening. This would be like you're right on university campus. It's
my gosh. Is it
6 stories.
old? Is it old, new?
It's brand new. They just finished it.
Oh, brand new.
They just finished it this semester.
Okay, so 168 units.
141 units.
141 units. Oh, God.
Do you want to calculate?
I'd say 400 a door.
141 times 400 a door is $56.4 million.
Yeah.
Final answer?
Final answer.
Want to round up? Want to round down?
I'd probably round up.
So round up to 60?
Sure.
Okay, let's try 90.
What?
So Seymour Building.
Wait.
Just
how much
sold
is that a door?
That works out to $600 a door.
What? How big are these units?
3 to 4 bed.
Oh, well, man, come on. You got to give me some of that information.
Got him.
Oh, I thought because it was
I was gonna.
I thought they were 1 bedroom units. Why did they build 3 to 4 bedroom units there?
Well, because it's how the bylaws work, right? You kind of have to work around them. But it's 491 beds, and so they bought it on a per bed basis of $183,000 per bed.
They're
which
going
is
to run
still
that. That is going to be
insane.
You know how back in the day we had the student ghetto, which was like low-rise duplexes that weren't that
Yeah,
nice?
that's gonna be this
now
thing.
they're going to have the student projects, which are going to be these like high-rise buildings, 4 students per unit. Oh my gosh.
It's an average of 3.5 beds per unit. So you basically have a mixture of 3 and 4 bed units.
Syphilis in that
But
place.
that's still very itchy. The it's still super expensive for 3 to 4 bed units.
Oh my gosh.
$600 a door.
That's crazy.
For a
dude.
6-story building. It's not like it's 30
It's
stories.
a 6-story building?
Yeah, man.
It?
That's what I mean. They're not.
Tell me it's built out of concrete at least.
It's built out of concrete, but
Oh, thank God.
they're not like huge, like square footage wise. They're just a lot of beds in there.
Yeah.
Like
Holy
for me,
man.
this changes the game, and this one I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know if the
can't
government
compete with that.
I don't know if the government can compete. And the other thing is, if now TO is buying stuff from here like that, how many of the developers here are like, yo, like
Yeah.
that when they interviewed the company that built that, Work Live, they said their construction budget was $35 million. They just sold that bitch for 90.
That's
Now
a decent return.
that was the start of the pandemic. They've updated their budget to be like 57 million or something. But still, it's
Still solid profit.
ridiculous. And especially when you think that I remember a building
Sure.
sold here for $300 a door 2 years ago, and we were all losing our minds.
Yeah.
Right. So I used to sell student housing all the time, and it used to go for $100 a door. I feel like it still kind of went for like 120 a door. Like this one blew my mind, but really what I'm getting at with this whole thing, to go back to the hotel, is just like, I don't think the government's gonna be able to compete. I also think this might spur a bit of a boom for some builders. Be like, yo, holy shit,
Buy and flip or sell, build and flip. Yeah.
For appraisals now, like it's like, oh yeah, I can get $600 a door, right? Like
My
so.
God, man. All right.
Anyways,
Cool. Appreciate you guys as always.
Thanks for listening.
Keep firing the questions.
keep firing the questions. We'll try and get back to them. I think what we'll do next time is we'll bring some more onto the pod. And yeah, let us know what you guys think. If there's anything else you want us to cover, we'll have more specific topics to come. But we just wanted to have a conversation about some things that we were thinking about.
What's going on?
What's going on?
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for watching the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. Don't forget to subscribe. But also check us out on Instagram and TikTok. You can find all the links below. Thanks again for checking us out.